She escaped a life of misery, but freedom had a price only her courage could. Lyra sat alone in the dim light of her small cabin, the hum of the orbital mining colony thrumming through the walls. Outside, the vast expanse of space stretched endlessly, dotted with distant stars that seemed almost close enough to touch. Yet she felt trapped, confined in a life that was far from the freedom she dreamed of. Her fingers danced over the tablet she had stolen from the colony's central system, scanning star charts and technical schematics. Each line of code and each blinking light reminded her that there was another life out there, one she could almost taste, but could not reach. The colony itself was enormous, a massive ring of metal and machinery circling a dying asteroid. Its corridors were narrow, crowded with workers and lined with blinking panels that monitored every movement. It was designed to be efficient, and efficiency meant control. People like Lyra were expendable, valuable only as long as they could produce ore, repair equipment, or operate mining drones. The higher-ups rarely looked beyond the numbers, and those who did often disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Lyra pressed her back against the cold wall of her cabin and took a deep breath. She was 22, small but quick, with eyes that had learned to notice details that others missed. She had grown up in this colony, born to parents who had been workers too, and she had known only struggle and harsh routine. Life here was simple in theory: mine the ore, repair machines, sleep, repeat. But the reality was a constant grind. Days blurred together, marked only by the relentless schedule of the colony's systems. Yet even here, in this metal cage spinning silently in the void, Lyra refused to let her spirit be crushed. She had dreams, visions of a world far beyond the mining tunnels, a world where she could walk beneath green trees, feel the warmth of a sun that wasn't filtered through thick metal walls, and breathe air that wasn't recycled endlessly. As, every night, when the lights dimmed and the hum of machinery became a steady lullaby, she would close her eyes and imagine herself floating among the stars, free and alive. Tonight, however, her quiet rebellion took a more serious form. Lyra had discovered something she was not supposed to know. The corporation that controlled the colony had plans for her, plans that would sell her to another faction for her skills, treating her as property rather than a person. She had overheard fragments of conversation, data files hidden in the colony's secure servers, and the truth had hit her like a cold wave. The freedom she had been promised would not be freedom at all. Her fingers trembled slightly as she tapped into the colony's system again. She had spent months learning its rhythms, studying its routines, and memorizing the security protocols. She was no hacker by trade, but necessity had made her clever. Every lock she bypassed, every algorithm she decoded, was a small rebellion against the life they had forced upon her. Tonight, she wasn't just planning to survive, she was planning to escape. The thought of leaving filled her with both excitement and fear. She could feel the weight of the unknown pressing against her chest, a mix of danger and possibility that made her pulse quicken. There were no guarantees in the void. A small mistake could mean being stranded in the cold emptiness of space, far from help, with no way to return. But staying meant being trapped, sold, and forced into a life that wasn't hers. Lyra slid her hand along the console, activating a series of hidden protocols she had created. Lights blinked green, then yellow, then finally stabilizing in a soft, steady glow. She had hacked the navigation systems of a cargo shuttle docked in the maintenance bay. It was small but fast, and most importantly, it was unguarded at night. If she could make it to open space, she had a chance, small but real, to leave the colony forever. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. The colony's AI was running a routine check of all systems, and Lyra held her breath, watching the progress bar inch across the screen. Each second felt like an eternity. She knew that if the AI detected her activity, alarms would sound and escape would be impossible. She focused on her breathing, counting slowly in her mind, and when the bar finished, she exhaled quietly. No alerts. She had done it. But freedom, she knew, was never simple. The shuttle required fuel, oxygen, and precise navigation through a network of debris fields that orbited the asteroid. Any error could mean collision and death. Lyra studied the star charts again, tracing the safest path she had calculated, one that would take her beyond the colony's patrol drones and into the emptiness of unclaimed space. She imagined herself piloting the shuttle, the metal walls of the colony fading behind her as stars stretched endlessly ahead. Her thoughts drifted briefly to her parents. They had passed away years ago in a mining accident that the corporation had barely recorded. She had no family waiting for her, no one to mourn her if she failed. It was a lonely kind of freedom she was chasing, one that required complete trust in her own skills and courage. And yet, the loneliness didn't scare her. The thought of living a life on her own terms, even if it was alone, was more comforting than the false security of the colony. Lyra stood and stretched, feeling the tension in her muscles after a long day in the cramped corridors. She moved toward the maintenance bay, her steps quiet but purposeful. Every door she passed, every panel she bypassed, was a small victory. The colony was a machine designed to control, and she was a human determined to slip through its gears. The contrast between her mind and the cold logic of the systems around her felt almost poetic. Reaching the shuttle, Lyra paused to inspect it. Its hull was scratched and worn, evidence of years of use, but it was functional. She ran her fingers along the console, checking fuel levels, oxygen supply, and engine diagnostics. Everything was in order. The risk was real, but she had calculated it, and that was all she could do. As she climbed into the pilot's seat, Lyra allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought of the stars she had seen through the colony's small observation windows, distant and untouchable, and now, for the first time, they seemed within reach. The shuttle's engine hummed to life, a steady, comforting vibration that reminded her that she was still in control. The colony's lights faded behind her as the docking clamps released, and she pushed the throttle forward, feeling the gentle surge of acceleration as the shuttle moved into the darkness of space. The void outside was breathtaking. Stars glittered against the black canvas, distant suns and planets stretching endlessly. Lyra felt a thrill she had never known, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Every decision she had made, every risk she had taken, had led to this moment. She was no longer a worker trapped in a colony. She was a traveler, a pioneer, a human, venturing into the unknown. Yet, even as she sailed through space, Lyra knew her journey had only begun. The freedom she sought would come with challenges she could not yet see, dangers that required more than skill. They required courage, creativity, and determination. But if humanity had taught her anything, it was that those qualities were limitless when pressed. She would face whatever lay ahead, armed with nothing but her mind, her instincts, and the unwavering belief that she deserved more than a life of misery. The shuttle sensors detected movement nearby, a small cluster of debris floating from a nearby asteroid. Lyra maneuvered carefully, her fingers flying over the controls, weaving through the obstacles with the precision she had honed over months of practice. The first test of her journey had arrived, and she passed it with skill and calm. Every success reinforced her confidence. Every challenge she overcame reminded her that humans, even alone, could accomplish what machines and systems could not. Hours passed as she navigated through the emptiness. Lyra used the shuttle's sensors to chart a course beyond the patrol drones, and for the first time she allowed herself to dream without limits. She imagined planets with green forests and oceans, cities filled with people who could live freely, and the possibility that one day she might find a place to call home. But the galaxy was not empty, and Lyra knew she was not alone. As she adjusted the course, a faint signal appeared on her scanner, a blinking light, regular and deliberate. It was unlike anything human-made. Her curiosity was piqued, and for a moment she hesitated. She could continue on her safe course, drifting toward colonies that would offer refuge, or she could investigate this mysterious signal. Lyra made her choice. Humanity had always been defined by curiosity, courage, and the willingness to step into the unknown. She pushed the shuttle toward the signal, her heart racing with anticipation. Whatever awaited her, she would face it with the same determination that had brought her this far. She was free now, but she knew freedom was not the end. It was only the beginning. The signal grew stronger as she approached, and the outline of a massive, derelict ship slowly appeared against the star-strewn void. Its surface was worn and scarred, evidence of battles and travels long past. Lyra felt a thrill of awe and apprehension. She had escaped one cage, only to step into a mystery that might prove even more challenging. But she smiled, feeling a surge of excitement she had never known. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready. Lyra's journey into the unknown had begun. Lyra's shuttle floated silently in the void, its engines humming softly against the endless backdrop of stars. The derelict ship loomed ahead like a dark monolith, massive and silent, its surface scarred with burns and dents that told stories she could only imagine. It wasn't like any human ship she had ever seen. Its shape was elegant, yet alien, with sweeping curves and smooth plates of metal that reflected the distant starlight. Lyra's heart raced. Every instinct in her body told her to be cautious, yet curiosity burned brighter than fear. She checked her shuttle systems one last time. Oxygen levels were full, fuel was sufficient, and the navigation systems were steady. Beyond that, there was no guidance, no instructions, only the unknown. She tightened her grip on the controls and slowly guided the shuttle toward a gap in the ship's hull that appeared to be an entry point. The derelict was enormous, much larger than any vessel she had encountered in the colony's archives, and docking would require precision. One wrong move could crush the shuttle or send her drifting into the void with no hope of recovery. Her fingers danced over the control panel as she aligned the shuttle. Time seemed to stretch, every second amplified by the stillness of space. Finally, with a gentle shudder, the shuttle latched onto the alien ship. Lyra exhaled, feeling a small triumph. She had escaped the colony, survived the empty void, and now faced a challenge that would test every skill she had learned. Taking a deep breath, she suited up in her standard EVA suit. The pressurized fabric clung to her, warm and protective, and the helmet sealed with a satisfying click. She ran through the pre-docking checklist, ensuring that life support was functioning and that the airlock could handle a manual override. She glanced at the alien ship's hull, noticing strange symbols etched into its metal, geometric patterns that pulsed faintly, as if alive. A shiver ran down her spine. Lyra stepped into the airlock, her movements careful and deliberate. She activated the outer hatch, and the vacuum of space pressed against the transparent shield. She could see the shuttle behind her, tethered securely, and beyond that the empty stars stretched in all directions. For a moment, she felt a pang of loneliness. Out here, no one would know if she failed. There were no allies, no rescue teams, no second chances. But then she remembered why she had left the colony. Freedom was never safe. It was worth the risk. She released the outer hatch and floated toward the ship's entry port. The surface of the alien vessel was smooth and cold beneath her gloves, yet it seemed to hum faintly under her touch. The entry point was a narrow opening, just wide enough for her to slip through. She held her breath as she entered, the darkness swallowing her like a quiet, waiting presence. Inside, the ship was even stranger. It was vast, with high ceilings that arched into shadows, corridors that twisted in ways that defied her sense of direction, and surfaces that shimmered as though the metal itself were alive. Lyra's first instinct was to move slowly, observing everything. The air inside was faintly breathable, almost surprising. It suggested some life support system still functioned, though she could not understand how or why. She moved cautiously, her flashlight cutting through the dim interior. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, guiding her path, or perhaps warning her to turn back. Lyra didn't care. She had no reason to fear exploration. Humans were made for the unknown, for stepping where others hesitated. She had left behind a cage for this very reason, and she would not retreat now. As she explored, Lyra discovered a central chamber. It was massive, circular, and dominated by what appeared to be a control console. The console was unlike anything she had ever seen. Its surface rippled with light, responding to her presence as if it could sense her thoughts. She reached out, hesitant at first, and a panel slid open, revealing a complex array of holographic symbols. Her heart pounded. This was technology far beyond anything humans had created or even imagined. She could see data streams flowing in patterns, strange sequences of light and energy that seemed alive. Lyra felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear. She didn't fully understand it, but she recognized one thing. Humans had a unique advantage here. Where machines might follow protocols blindly, and where aliens might rely on rigid systems, she could adapt, improvise, and think creatively. The console flickered suddenly, and a soft voice echoed through the chamber. "Intruder detected. Identify yourself." Lyra froze. The voice was calm, measured, and perfectly neutral, yet it carried an authority that made her pulse quicken. She realized the ship was not entirely abandoned. Some kind of AI, or perhaps an alien intelligence, was still active. I'm Lyra," she said cautiously. "I mean no harm. I'm just exploring." There was a pause. Then the voice spoke again, slightly slower this time. "Exploration requires authorization. You are not authorized." "Why are you here?" Lyra swallowed, thinking fast. "I escaped from a colony," she said honestly. "I was trapped. I wanted freedom. I didn't know anyone else would be here. I... I just want to understand your ship." Another pause, longer this time. Then the voice said, "Curiosity detected. Persistence detected. You possess qualities uncommon in your species." Lyra's eyebrows rose. "Uncommon?"
You mean humans? Assessment. Humans are adaptable, resourceful.
"You demonstrate these traits?" She blinked. The AI, or whatever it was acknowledging human strengths. That made her chest swell with pride. Humans had survived countless dangers on Earth and beyond because of ingenuity and courage. Even in the face of far superior machines or hostile environments, humans found a way to thrive. And now, in the heart of an alien ship, this intelligence recognized that too. Lyra smiled faintly. "Thank you," she said. I guess we're full of surprises." The voice hummed in response. "Assessment updated. You may access restricted systems under observation. Caution advised. Errors may result in deactivation. Lyra's pulse quickened. She had access. Finally, a chance to explore, to learn, and to prove that humans could interact with the unknown. Her hands shook slightly as she touched the console, scanning through the data streams, trying to decipher their meaning. The language was complex, but patterns emerged. Energy flows, star charts, and maps of distant regions flashed across the holograms. One particular map caught her eye. A bright line traced a path through several star systems, ending at a small cluster of planets that were clearly habitable. As she studied it, her stomach tightened. Humans had colonies scattered across these systems. This AI had navigated them long before human settlers had arrived, and something about the path suggested danger, a cosmic event, perhaps a natural phenomenon that threatened life in one of the colonies. Lyra realized immediately that her escape had led her into a new responsibility. She had left one life of misery only to encounter a challenge that required more than courage. It required action. Humans weren't just survivors. They were problem solvers, pioneers, and sometimes the unexpected heroes in situations that no machine or alien logic could handle. She spent hours analyzing the data, cross-referencing with what little she knew from the colony's archives. Every discovery reinforced the truth she had always believed. Humans were remarkable. Resourceful, creative, and morally driven, they could achieve feats that others considered impossible. Lyra felt a surge of pride. She was human, and that fact gave her hope in the face of uncertainty. Finally, she noticed movement at the edge of her peripheral vision. Small drones, shaped differently from anything human, floated silently along the corridors, scanning the ship. They paused when they detected her presence, lights blinking in a curious pattern. Lyra understood immediately. The ship's AI was testing her, assessing her decisions and reactions. It was not a trap, but an evaluation. Her mind raced. Every choice mattered. She could panic, retreat, or act without thought, and each would be recorded. Instead, she chose calm observation. She approached one drone carefully, observing its movements. When it reached out, she mirrored its gestures cautiously, a silent attempt at communication. The drone paused, then hovered, lights softening. The AI's voice echoed again. Ow! Adaptability confirmed. Assessment favorable. Lyra exhaled, relief washing over her. Even in the strangest of places, humans had a way of navigating challenges through intelligence, courage, and understanding. She smiled to herself. Perhaps freedom was not just leaving one cage, it was proving to the universe that humans deserved to exist on their own terms. Her attention returned to the star maps. Ha! The cosmic event threatening human colonies demanded action. But she could return to her shuttle and flee to safety, but that would leave others in danger. Lyra knew she could not do that. Humans had a sense of responsibility, a willingness to risk for the sake of others. It was why she had survived the colony, and why she now had the chance to survive the unknown. Making her decision, she activated a secure channel through the AI, asking for further guidance. "I need to understand this event," she said. "I need to know how to help. Humans, we can solve problems, but we need information." There was a pause. Then, finally, the voice responded, "Information will be shared. Cooperation may ensure survival. Decision, initiative required. Caution, unknown consequences." Lyra nodded, determination filling her chest. She had left the colony seeking freedom. She had found it, but it came with a price. Courage would be required, intelligence would be tested, and the unknown would challenge every skill she possessed. But she was human. She would not fail. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt truly alive. Lyra floated deeper into the alien ship, her movements slow and careful, every step a dance in the low gravity of the corridors. The ship seemed endless, a labyrinth of metal and glowing symbols that twisted in ways her mind struggled to follow. Yet she was not afraid. She had faced the void and survived, and she knew humans had a way of finding paths where others saw only walls. Curiosity drove her forward, stronger than fear. The voice of the ship's AI, calm and measured, echoed in her helmet. "You have navigated basic systems. Oh, hi." Assessment. Adaptive intelligence confirmed. Proceeding to evaluate advanced systems. Lyra felt a shiver of anticipation. This was no ordinary machine. It was alive in ways she could feel but not fully understand. She had heard stories of alien AI, entities that could think faster than humans, solve problems effortlessly, and react with perfect logic. Yet here she was, a single human, being allowed to move freely through its chambers. Perhaps it had recognized what she already knew. Humans were unpredictable, creative, and resilient in ways even the most advanced machines could not anticipate. She entered a vast chamber at the center of the ship. The room was circular, its walls lined with luminous panels that pulsed gently like the heartbeat of the vessel. At the center, a large platform hovered, surrounded by a translucent energy field. Lyra approached cautiously, her eyes scanning for traps or threats. The air smelled faintly metallic but was breathable. Her suit's sensors confirmed that oxygen levels were stable and temperature moderate. "Welcome," the AI said. "This is the core chamber. Your presence here will be evaluated through a series of tests. Success will grant access to critical ship functions. Failure may result in containment or system lockdown." Lyra swallowed hard. She had left the colony to escape control, yet now she was facing another authority, this one far older, far more intelligent. She squared her shoulders. Humans had faced challenges before, from harsh planets to raging storms, and had always adapted. This was no different. Courage and intelligence were her weapons, and she would use them. The first test appeared on the central platform. Holographic shapes floated above it, shifting in patterns that seemed random at first. The AI's voice continued. "Align the energy conduits to stabilize the core matrix. Time limit, 60 minutes. Human logic and intuition required." Lyra studied the patterns carefully. They were complex, interlocking shapes that pulsed with light. Each shape emitted a low hum, a vibration she could feel through her suit. It was unlike any puzzle she had encountered. Her first instinct was to apply standard logic, moving shapes in linear sequences. But the patterns resisted her efforts. She took a deep breath. Humans were not the fastest, but they were inventive. She paused and observed the shapes, noticing subtle clues in the vibrations and the timing of the pulses. Slowly, she began to shift the shapes according to the rhythm, not just the pattern. As she moved, the AI's voice monitored silently. "Unorthodox approach detected. Assessment promising," it said. Minutes stretched into hours as she worked, guided by intuition as much as logic. Sweat beaded on her forehead under the helmet. Her hands ached from constant movement, yet she refused to stop. Humans had a way of persisting where others might quit, and her persistence now mattered more than raw speed. Finally, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. The shapes aligned, the pulsing light steadied, and the energy field around the platform stabilized. Lyra exhaled, relief washing over her. She had done it. The AI's voice acknowledged her success. Test 1 complete. Human ingenuity confirmed. Proceed to test 2. Lyra nodded, though no one could see her. She felt a surge of pride. Even in the alien ship, she could prove the strength of human thought and determination. The second test appeared as a holographic map of the galaxy. One region glowed ominously, shifting violently with chaotic energy readings. The AI's voice spoke again. A cosmic phenomenon threatens a human colony in this sector. Your task is to identify a safe trajectory to deliver a warning. Simulation conditions, unpredictable variables, standard algorithms will fail. Human adaptability required. Lyra's pulse quickened. This was not a simulation. The data felt real, as though the AI was giving her a preview of a genuine disaster. She studied the readings carefully. The cosmic energy was unstable, fluctuating in patterns too irregular for standard computation. Human colonies were at risk, and the AI had chosen her to solve this problem. She thought back to the colony she had escaped, the miners, the workers, the people trapped under harsh rules. She knew how it felt to be powerless. She would not allow others to suffer if she could prevent it. Human empathy, combined with ingenuity, gave her an advantage no machine could replicate. Lyra began plotting a course. She used logic where she could, intuition where data was incomplete, and creativity to bridge gaps. The AI observed silently, recording her every decision, every hesitation, every spark of insight. Hours passed, and the energy readings shifted unpredictably. She adapted, recalculated, and finally marked a trajectory that avoided the danger zone entirely. Trajectory accepted. Assessment. Human foresight confirmed, the AI said. A thrill ran through Lyra. Even the most advanced systems sometimes failed to see the subtle patterns that a human mind could recognize. She had not just survived, she had succeeded. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was a strength. The third test was more personal. The chamber shifted, and a holographic projection appeared, a recreation of the colony she had escaped. She could see herself among the miners, trapped in routines and under harsh supervision. The AI's voice said, "Emotional resilience evaluated. Respond to moral dilemma." Lyra studied the scene. The simulation showed a system failure in the colony. Machines malfunctioned, threatening workers' lives. She could intervene in 2 ways: prioritize technical correction, ensuring machinery ran but leaving some miners at risk, or act to save all workers, risking greater damage to the colony's infrastructure. Her heart pounded. Humans had always faced moral dilemmas, decisions where no choice was perfect. She chose to prioritize life. Using her knowledge, she rerouted systems creatively, stabilizing the machinery while guiding the workers to safety. It was a delicate balance, but she succeeded. Assessment. Human morality and courage confirmed, the AI said. Emotional intelligence exceeds expected thresholds. Lyra felt a strange warmth. She had been recognized not just for skill, but for character. Humans were more than logic. They were moral, compassionate, and brave. The AI's evaluation affirmed something she had always known. Human strength was not only in action, but in spirit. Finally, the AI presented the last test: direct interaction. Communication with AI will determine further cooperation, demonstrate understanding, creativity, and adaptability. Lyra took a deep breath. She spoke honestly, calmly, and with confidence. "I don't fully understand your systems, and I don't know everything you know, but I can learn. I can adapt. I can think in ways that are unexpected. Humans survive where others fail. We see solutions that might not exist on paper, and if you let me help, We can accomplish something greater together." There was silence, then a pause. The ship's AI seemed to consider her words. Finally, it spoke. Statement acknowledged. Assessment complete. Human potential confirmed. Cooperation initiated. Lyra exhaled slowly, relief flooding through her. She had faced the unknown, adapted to impossible challenges, and proven the qualities that made humans exceptional: courage, ingenuity, empathy, and creativity. She was no longer just a survivor. She was a partner, capable of influencing events far beyond the colony she had left behind. The AI presented new data. The cosmic phenomenon threatening the human colony was real, far more dangerous than any simulation. Yet, with the information provided, she could take action. Lyra felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders, but she did not falter. Humans thrived under pressure, and she would rise to the challenge. She spent the next hours absorbing the ship's data, learning its systems, and preparing for the journey ahead. Every discovery reinforced a single truth: humans were remarkable, not the fastest, not the strongest, but adaptable, moral, and endlessly inventive. She smiled to herself. She had escaped one cage, faced the unknown, and now stood ready to confront a threat that could affect countless lives. Lyra floated to the edge of the central chamber, gazing out into the darkness through the ship's viewports. Stars stretched endlessly, distant planets glowing faintly in the black. Freedom had brought her here, but courage and human spirit would guide her further. She knew the path ahead would be dangerous, but she had never been more certain of her ability to succeed. For the first time, Lyra felt a true sense of purpose. She had left misery behind, faced tests no human had encountered, and proven that her species could overcome obstacles through intelligence, empathy, and courage. Whatever challenges awaited, she would meet them, not as a single human lost in the void, but as a representative of humanity itself. The journey was far from over. The cosmic threat loomed. Decisions had to be made, and unknown dangers awaited. But Lyra's heart was steady. She was ready. Humanity had always thrived where others failed. And now, Lyra was about to prove it once again. Lyra floated in the command chamber of the alien ship, staring at the holographic display that showed the distant human colony. The images shimmered with detail, revealing the sprawling mining facility she had once called home. For a brief moment, memories of her life there washed over her. The hard work, the endless routine, the suffocating rules of the corporate overlords. She had escaped that life, yet now she realized her freedom came with a new responsibility. The colony was in danger. The cosmic phenomenon was unlike anything she had ever studied. The AI had labeled it an unstable energy storm, a massive field of charged particles and gravitational anomalies sweeping unpredictably across the sector. If it struck the colony, the mining structures would collapse, drones would fail, and lives would be at risk. Lyra's stomach tightened as she watched the storm's chaotic patterns unfold. "You must act quickly," the AI said, its calm voice cutting through the tension. "Traditional evacuation protocols will fail. Human judgment required." Lyra nodded, her mind racing. She had studied the ship's systems for hours, learned how to operate its engines, and even begun to understand its alien technology. But she had never faced anything like this. The storm was enormous, unpredictable, and utterly alien. No algorithm could fully calculate its movements. Humans could survive where systems failed, though, and Lyra intended to prove it. She began plotting a trajectory for the ship, aiming to intercept the storm before it reached the colony. Her hands flew over the controls as she ran calculations, cross-referenced with star charts, and adjusted for variables she could barely understand. The AI offered guidance, but it deferred to her judgment. This was no longer a test, it was a real mission, and the responsibility rested entirely on her shoulders. Minutes felt like hours as she navigated through the void. Every movement of the ship required precision. Too fast, and she risked collision with debris from the storm. Too slow, and the colony could be struck before she arrived. The alien ship responded to her commands with eerie perfection. Yet it was her intuition that guided the final adjustments. Humans could adapt in real time, anticipate outcomes from incomplete data, and improvise when logic alone failed. As she approached the outer edge of the storm, Lyra's heart pounded. The energy field pulsed violently, streaks of colored plasma dancing unpredictably across the void. She could feel the hum of the alien ship under her fingertips, almost like a heartbeat responding to the danger. She took a deep breath and pushed the engines forward, weaving through the turbulent currents of energy. The first wave of the storm hit. Lightning-like streaks of plasma danced dangerously close to the ship, sending shudders through the hull. Lyra adjusted the shields, rerouted power to the engines, and guided the vessel with careful, calculated movements. Every second counted. She could feel fear rising, but she did not allow it to control her. Humans survived in impossible situations because they could stay calm under pressure, think clearly, and act decisively. Hours passed as she navigated deeper into the storm. The alien ship's AI monitored her, offering analysis and support, but it deferred to her judgment at every turn. The storm was alive, shifting in ways she could not fully predict, yet she adapted. She used patterns she had observed, intuition, and every ounce of her ingenuity to stay ahead of the storm's deadly arcs. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy struck the ship, throwing her against the controls. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and for a terrifying moment, she feared the worst. She gritted her teeth and pressed forward, recalibrating the shields and adjusting the trajectory. The ship responded, stabilizing under her commands. Every challenge reinforced a single truth: humans could survive where others failed, not through strength alone, but through resilience and determination. The AI spoke, its voice calm but tinged with something she could almost interpret as concern. Warning: energy surge may destabilize nearby colonies. Action required. Human judgment critical. Lyra's hands flew over the controls. She identified weak points in the storm, areas where the energy density was lower. She calculated a path that would guide the storm away from the colony, using the alien ship's engines to create a controlled gravitational shift. It was risky. One miscalculation, and both she and the colony would be lost. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. She trusted her instincts, her training, and her courage. Humans had faced impossible odds before, from storms on distant planets to wars and natural disasters. They had survived because they adapted, learned, and persevered. She would do the same now. The ship responded to her commands, energy thrusters firing in precise bursts to nudge the storm. The plasma arcs danced around her like lightning in a storm on Earth, yet she guided the vessel with steady hands. Minutes stretched into what felt like an eternity as she monitored the colony's status, the storm's movements, and the ship's systems. Then a new challenge appeared. A secondary energy surge threatened to bypass her controls, a rogue wave moving faster than her calculations predicted. Lyra realized she could not correct it from the ship alone. The only solution was to manually override a section of the storm's gravitational field, placing herself in direct proximity to the energy surge. It would be dangerous. She could be caught in the plasma, thrown into the void, or crushed by the forces she sought to manipulate. Fear surged through her, sharp and immediate, but she remembered why she had left the colony. Humans did not run from responsibility when others' lives were at stake. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was acting in spite of it. She secured herself in an external harness, activated her suit's thrusters, and moved toward the surge. The energy field crackled around her, brilliant arcs of light illuminating the void. She could feel the heat through her suit, the pulsing waves of force pressing against her. Every instinct told her to retreat, yet she pressed forward, guiding the surge with careful adjustments. Her hands ached, her vision blurred, but she refused to stop. Back in the ship, the AI monitored her actions, analyzing every movement. Human resilience confirmed. Probability of success, 68%. Continue. Lyra gritted her teeth and pushed harder. Using a combination of thruster adjustments and precise manipulations of the ship's energy field, she began to redirect the surge away from the colony. The process was exhausting, physically and mentally, but she did not waver. Humans could endure incredible stress when it mattered most, and she was proof of that. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the surge stabilized. The storm's path shifted, moving away from the colony and dissipating gradually into the void. Lyra floated in the harness, gasping for breath, sweat dripping inside her helmet. She had done it. She had faced an unimaginable danger and prevailed, not through brute strength, but through courage, ingenuity, and perseverance. The AI's voice echoed, softer this time. Assessment: human courage, intelligence, and moral responsibility confirmed. Outcome: colony preserved. Initiative acknowledged. Lyra exhaled, relief flooding her. She had risked everything. Her life, her freedom, but the colony was safe. A cost of freedom, she realized, was responsibility. Courage was not just about escaping misery. It was about standing up when others could not. She returned to the ship, removing the harness and floating back into the central chamber. The AI continued to monitor her, yet now there was something different in its tone, almost like respect. Human potential exceeds expectations. Cooperation recommended for future operations. Lyra smiled faintly. She had proven something important, not just to the AI, but to herself. Humans were remarkable. They could adapt, solve problems no one else could, and face dangers with courage and moral clarity. She had left a life of misery and paid the price with bravery, but in doing so, she had gained something greater, a sense of purpose, and the knowledge that her species could thrive in ways no one had imagined. Her thoughts turned to the colony. The miners and workers she had once called neighbors, now safe, were proof that her actions mattered. Freedom was not just personal. It came with the responsibility to use one's strengths for the greater good. She had escaped a cage, faced the unknown, and now ensured others could continue their lives. Hours later, as the storm fully dissipated and the colony system stabilized, Lyra allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The alien ship hummed gently around her, a living machine that had recognized her potential and allowed her to act. She had faced the ultimate test of courage, intelligence, and moral responsibility, and succeeded. Yet even as she floated in the calm of the aftermath, Lyra knew this was not the end. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and dangers yet unseen. She had proven herself, but the challenges ahead would demand even more ingenuity, courage, and moral strength. Freedom had a price, and she had paid it. But the journey was far from over. Looking out at the stars, Lyra felt a surge of determination. Humans had survived countless challenges, adapted to impossible situations, and risen above adversity. She was human, and that fact gave her strength. Whatever lay ahead, she would face it with courage, intelligence, and the moral clarity that had guided her through the storm. The next steps were unclear, but Lyra was ready. She would continue to explore the unknown, confront dangers, and prove, once again, that humanity's spirit was indomitable. Freedom had a price, but she had shown that humans were willing to pay it, and in doing so, shape the universe in ways no machine or alien force could ignore.